Welcome back, guys. So, painting. So this kit's had probably the cut of 24 hours, maybe 2 days to really cure up and harden up. So quite confident that the primer coat is down well. So paint scheme. So we're going to do the white first. And there's a lot of white. So all the undersides, basically underside wings, underside tail planes, the whole tail, and then a great proportion of the center fuselage, and then obviously running down the side of the fuselage is white. So I couldn't actually get any decent flat white. I do have flat white, but it's quite heavily thinned for an old project, so I thought I would just get some new white. So I'm actually using Tamiya's XF2. So I've got a new jar of that, and to put the matting agent into that jar, I've got Tamiya X21 flat base. So this is the matting agent that Tamiya does, where you can make a gloss into a matte. And then to take the brightness out of the white, because Tamiya's white is a very bright white, I've got some XF57 buff just to take the edge off it, dull it down a little bit, and it'll make it more akin to insignia white, which is pretty much what these things were painted in. And then obviously, once all these three are combined, whatever volumetric space is left in the paint pot, I will be using Tamiya's standard X20A thinners just to thin the paint to make it flow a bit better. So, paint mixing. Let's have a look and see what we're going to do. So as I said, this is a brand new jar of flat white, and it's been lying in storage for a while. I think you can see that the pigment has separated from the carrier. What I do have, and what are very handy, I use them quite often, are the Tamiya stainless steel paint stirrers. So if you come across any of these, they're well worth getting. Very, very good for reinvigorating a pot of paint that's settled out. Right. So we need to give this a stir. I'm not actually sure of any ratios to put in. You don't need a huge amount to make it matte. Obviously, if you put a lesser amount in, you've more chance of getting a satin finish, which for us won't be a big problem. But I'll put a decent glug in there. Try and tidy up after ourselves, because we don't want this stuff dusting around everywhere, because it does go very, very dusty. When it dries, it is a very fine white. It's almost like a talc consistency. Alright, now next thing we need to do, we'll give this a stir in, and then once we get the white livened up so we've got the true colour of it in the pot, we can then add the buff to satisfy ourselves. Now, colour is a very emotive subject. Let's be real, these aircraft in operational life operated in very, very harsh conditions. I live in Shetland, where this aircraft flew out of, and it's very wet, it's very windy, the sea conditions are very rarely smooth and flat, and there's obviously going to be lots of fuel, oils, algae, grease, you name it, floating around in the water around these aircraft. So the paint is going to take an absolute pasting. In the summer, you've got 14-15 hours of daylight, especially if they're flying up to the Arctic, then they could be in perpetual daylight. In the winter, you've maybe only got about 7 or 8 hours of daylight on a good day, if you're lucky. So they were exposed to the extremes of the weather that weather can throw at them. Right, so let's just start with the end of this and see how we get on, because you don't need much to tint off white, and that's probably enough. That's probably going to be very, very hard for the camera to see that, but that's just taken the brightness out of the white. It made it less stark. Right, let's get some little extra thinners in there to make it flow a bit better. That should be a good mix of paint to paint this aircraft. And the thinners will help reactivate the paint for lying on the shelf for so long. Right, I'll clean this off, get the lid back on, and we'll give it a damn good shake now that we've given it a damn good stir. So you don't need to see me shaking this on the camera. Let me get it set up. We'll get the airbrush set up and the model turned over, and we'll come back and we'll start the painting. Okay, so there's the hull primed. Got a tonal variation in there. Bit of interest. It's going to be interesting to see how the overspray is going to affect that. Right, wings. Wings again. We're going to have to do something with it because they're huge. You have to remember this is this part of the wing here, forward of the trailing edge, is metal. And this is all doped linen over wood. So what I'm planning to do is just highlight the high points. So we'll go over each one in turn, nice and steady. And this will really, really help you practice your airbrush control. So we're going to do that, and then to complement those, we'll put that hard edge in. Just blend it in, just to kind of complement that hard edge there. So we can just fade that in. And then we've got a stringer here where the joint is, or a strengthening brace. So we'll just put a solid colour over that. And then we've got a number of different panels. So we can either spray along the rivet lines, to highlight the edges, because these edges are actually raised in real life. They're joggled panels, and Revell has done an amazing job representing them. So we can do it to help it. We can add the highlight. What you're seeing, yeah, you're seeing some of that. It's such a huge model. I have to keep checking to see if it's all in frame. So we're going to go and highlight all these actual panel line joins. So we've got a long continuous span line here. Got one there, and then we've obviously got this leading edge here that we're going to do when we do the rest of these in and around areas where we've got the struts. So we want to highlight where the strut joins the wing. They would have done quite heavy corrosion prevention there, and get in here at the engines, highlight the engine to wing join. And then when it gets to this sort of section of the wing right under the fuselage, there's quite a lot of joggled panels. So we'll need to maneuver the aircraft so we can actually get into them. But once we've highlighted all these panels, then we need to think about what we're going to do with the remainder of the wing. And I'm actually giving these panels quite a strong highlight. Yeah, we've also got in here on the wingtip float area. So we've got a good strong highlight. Then we're going to think what we're going to do. Well, I think we'll just come back in here and we'll just pre-shade like we have done before. We'll try and keep it kind of tight. And this is a really, really good opportunity for anyone. I really honed my airbrushing skills doing this. You know, that trigger control, the directional control of the airbrush, just getting your wrist into the muscle memory of holding an airbrush and pointing it where you want the paint to go. So this sort of work is excellent to learn your airbrush craft and master it to a point where you're happy, and you can always improve. I'm always improving, and I've been doing this for years. So we're going to fill the panels in like that. So in the interest of not boring everyone to death, now you've seen the various techniques I'm going to be using. I'm going to get on and I'll just prime the whole underside of this aircraft. So we've got all the wings, tail surfaces, right underneath and up the sides. So there's an awful lot of white, so it's going to take me a little bit of time. I'll maybe even see if I can do a stop motion or something like that and see if it's any use. But I'll crack on and we'll see you back once I've got everything primed. Right, got the bulk of this priming done. It has taken me a little while, I'll have to say that. So we're just doing the last wing, and then we can have a look over all that we've done before we start looking at getting the colour coat down. So I'll carry on, we'll get this primed, and then we'll come back. There we go, there's one pot of paint, and that's got us nearly the whole model, which is not bad actually. Just half fill the airbrush because we're not needing to do the whole lot, we just want to finish it. Whew, there we go, and that is the priming done. Oh, nearly. But I need to keep it kind of even. Right, definitely done now. Taking me about probably half an hour or more to do, but I think it's looking okay. The real test is going to be when we get paint down. Now, again, we're on large surface areas, but the 3mm airbrush should be fine, and we shouldn't need to thin the paint anymore as we've done. So what we can do is just bring the airbrush back a little bit, and then we're going to use more of the paint and just gently feed it side by side over the areas we've painted to get a nice even coverage. Straight away you can see that shading coming through. And if you want to fill any more colour, just take a second turn over just to add a little bit more opacity to the paint where you want it to be more full colour. But I think you'll agree that putting the work in priming makes putting the colour coat down loads easier, because we've already got that tonal variation. We've already got the interest in the panels. They're already broken up, so it's not one great big brick of a model. And because we're spraying a little bit further away from the model, we've got nice fine atomization of the paint. We've got more control over how much paint we're putting down. Now, bearing in mind when you come to weather this, it's going to tone all this down again. So don't be frightened to leave it a little stark, because you'll be able to modulate that when we come back with the weathering products. But you can see the differences between these two sets of panels straight away, which is really what we're looking for. So we've got to come into all the panels, and that's it empty. What we might do is actually use the swallowtail with a fan cap and the 0.5 needle, just purely because we can get a larger area sprayed in a more sensible amount of time. So give me 2 seconds to swap airbrushes. it's stuck on. There we go. Give that a shake. I don't think I need to thin it anymore, but I might put a little bit of thinners in there, just a tiny touch, just to help it through the airbrush. Bear in mind we did start with a gloss paint, which is very pigment rich, and we've added flat base to it as well as a bit of buff, so it wouldn't hurt having a little bit more thinning. It'll just mean we have to do 1 or 2 more coats maybe. Right, so we've got a good solid half a paint cup there. Always take time to wipe the rim off the pot. That'll stop you gumming up your screws, lid screws with paint and making them bloody impossible to come off. Okay, quick test spray. I think if I can just show you, should be able to see it with the white. See how much more, there we go, you can see how much more coverage we're getting. Need to watch out for paint spitting though. That's covering an awful lot more quickly than the simple 0.3mm nozzle. But there is a lot more overspray with this. So what I'm going to do is, now you've seen me working with this, as I'm actually going to go over to the paint booth and use a bit of extraction to get most of the paint out, just to protect the room and overspray from all the other stuff that's lying around the desk. So back in a moment. Okay, so there we go. We have got a painted Catalina. The one thing I have noticed with the fan cap is that if you don't watch the paint build up on the fan apertures, you can get a little bit of spotting. So there is 1 or 2 bright spots, but that'll all blend in nicely when we come to do the weathering. We've got post shading as well, but I think you'll agree that we've got a really nice tonal variation on the kit. Still need to do the floats, and I still need to paint that end. But I'll be doing them just the same way as we've done the top, bearing in mind that the top surface of the float is upper surface camouflage, so we'll really just be doing everything from the lower side. I'll just follow the natural lines on the float. We've got some panels, the photo etch panels that we put on the top. They look really nice, and then both sides of the float itself will be insignia white. So you get a little bit of something to hold on to. And the hair, I didn't see that before. With the photo etch, because you've got such pronounced riveting, you could just do a little bit of the old sort of panel variation following the rivet lines, just to give it a little bit of something. The wash is going to pick these photo etch enhancements out beautifully. Don't forget that we can always come in and touch up any areas we need to if we've damaged the paint a little bit, or got a scuff, or as I can see here, there's definitely a hair in the paint finish that I can't seem to grip out. There we go, that's got rid of it, so I'll get that painted in before it sets up too much. So there we go, that's the underside with a number of different techniques for pre-shading and the use of the fan cap. And I tell you something, if I was using just the standard 0.3 needle, I'd be here now still painting. The fan cap made a huge difference without laying a beautiful even paint finish down. So, and also the mixing the flat base into gloss white and thinning it down has actually given us a beautiful paint, and it's a lovely satin finish that should dry up quite nice and hard. So there we go, that's this finished. I'm going to let this dry off, and then I'm probably going to think about sealing it in with a semi-gloss just to give it a little bit more protection for handling for the next step, which will be flipping it over, masking it off, and then going on to the upper surface camouflage scheme. So till next time guys, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to put them down below. Stay safe and happy modeling.